I kind of want to talk to you about this article because like,
Oh yeah, sure.
yeah, the title is "The Next Wave: Africa Needs to Shed the Mobile First Garb." What first of all, what inspired the article for you?
Interesting. So, um, what inspired the article? I have a lot, like, just in general, the people I talk to, um, that have a lot of, I don't know, I like the way they think. And so we were having this conversation around, um, I think one of them had tweeted something about um, mobile Africa and how it really wasn't the best idea. And I was curious because the whole idea we've had around tech in Africa and the whole narrative around the tech story basically is that mobile communications came into Africa around the early 2000s and basically revolutionized everything. Um, um, Really, when you hear about tech in Africa, really it's about consumption, about mobile devices and smartphones and feature phones and whatnot.
Yeah.
Uh, so, so I was curious, like, why this my friend was not really supportive of the idea of mobile, and so I tried to like we had a conversation, very brief chat, and then I did some research and followed up a bit on the work and did some thinking around it. And yeah, not only is like it's not about the mobile devices per se, right? Those are just vehicles for delivery. But the idea behind developing tech in Africa being that the idea behind developing tech in Africa being so focused on consumption, on producing mobile apps that people use, and software and whatnot, right? If when you really look at it, it feels like we're just glossing over what tech really means, right? Because again, you need all of this physical infrastructure, you need all of the hard tech, you need to be able to control your data centers and whatnot for you to deliver the mobile consumption. Right? So it's a whole value chain. And again, you see this play out, not just, I think the best way to illustrate this, right, is to like look at what happens in, say, something like the cocoa value chain. Right, you have all of these guys in Africa, in West Africa, especially in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire,
Yeah.
and in Nigeria, who farm cocoa. Uh, so basically, that's all they do. You farm the cocoa seeds, you dry them. If they meet export standards, you export them, sell them to guys in Switzerland and France, US, and China, and whatnot. Those guys are going to like transform that cocoa into chocolate powder, chocolate products, beverages, everything under the sun. They're going to sell it back to you. And I think I read somewhere that our cocoa farmers capture, I'm not very sure the figure, but I think if I remember correctly, it was around 4% of the actual, yeah, yeah, yeah. So the whole value chain, so you get like 4%. Um, and every other thing.
That's robbery.
Well, that's really it. Because it looks so when you take that and you apply it to how we're treating things, right? The
Yeah.
mobile is like the last part, it's the consumption part, it's you using
Mhm.
it. And it's fine, it's good. It brings access to a lot of people. We understand that, right? But what happens to all of these other parts? What happens to the part about data? What happens to the telecoms infrastructure? What happens to the hard tech, like actually even making the mobile devices themselves? What happens to all of those, that part, the whole value chain? Why have we just tried to make it all about software? And software is good, you know.
Mhm.
Again, like I keep stressing how well it is because people tend to become defensive when you talk about this because they feel like, oh no, look, software is delivering, blah blah blah. Like it helps, and that's fine. That's true. It's perfect. It does do all of those things,
Yeah.
right? But it doesn't mean that because it does all of those things that we're just going to like cross our arms and be like, oh yeah, we tried. We can write code, and so on and so. It's not about code. We need to begin to think about technology beyond writing code. We need to begin to think about technology as um, the parts of the code that the parts of technology that involves moving atoms, that involves moving physical things around, right?
Yeah.
And it can be anything from your fiber cable that delivers broadband internet, um, which right now, honestly speaking, the way it is, and I did mention that in that article, right? The way it's structured right now is you have the telcos who control all of these things, most of these things. The government really do not have any visibility. And it's a bit of a catch-22 situation, right? Because you don't want the government to be too involved, given the fact that, I mean, it could be abused. You still have a very, quote unquote, nascent democracy. And it's not really about democracy. I mean, you have China, and they're not a democratic place. Not that that's like a good model for anyone, right? But there should be some level of oversight, like technical oversight in the government, in from the government or from governance and so on and so forth. Right? At this point, what happens is the government has very scant technical capacity to actually monitor what's happening, to understand what's happening, but they have very strong and rigid bureaucratic processes, which is really just about issuing licenses.
Yeah.
So you come with your telco, you're going to place a bid, say, look, I want to bid for two spectrums. I want to bid for this spectrum and that spectrum. They say, okay, yeah, if you want to bid for it, you're going to pay the amount of money and so on and so forth. And if you pay that money, that's all, right? There is not so much um, technical oversight. There is fiscal oversight because, like in North African governments, are mostly rent seeking, just looking for a way to make a quick buck. But like actually understanding how should this fit into like an overall digital strategy for the continent. If you've read the African Union Agenda 2063,
Hmm.
um, you will find out, and if you read a lot of policy documents around the digital strategy, digital economy, technical and technology for Africa, you find out a lot of the policies, quote unquote, are really just we just taking the suggestions of um, white guys outside who have their own
If they
incentives.
are.
Yeah, no, you know, who have their own incentives, their own motivations for why they're suggesting that Africa should do this, do that. One of the places you see this manifest is in digital identity,
Yeah.
right? And this is happening all across the developing world and emerging economies. You have these guys in the World Bank, IMF, who are pushing for single universal biometric digital identities. And African governments basically adopted that whole say, put it into policy documents, and it's flying.
Hold on. I don't mean to interrupt you because this like we're leaving sensitive issue to another sensitive. Hope like so this hasn't even been discussed, put to vote. Like they just took
Oh
what
no, it's not.
as it was done in the 1800s. They just took what they were told and put it right into action.
More or less, you know, more or less. So, like, I don't know. So, that's essentially what's at the heart of the story about mobile first Africa. It's not really about the mobile first. It's not really about mobile devices. I guess that was just a nice way to like get people's attention. At the
Yeah.
core of it, right, and at the core of a lot of the work I'm following right now, because as a journalist and personally, right, is that when you talk Africa's digital economy, digital um, whatever, anything digital in Africa, it's not following any sort of coherent strategy that puts Africa first. It's more like we're just following uh, what the guys outside of Africa who have entirely different sets of motivations are giving us, right? Across the continent, that digital identity, which I just mentioned right now, it's been gaining traction. Nigeria, which is where I presently reside, you know, they basically forced everyone to go get biometric digital IDs or they pick you off. Um, you can't make phone calls if you don't go and get your fingerprint scanned, register and go through the process and takes a lot of time and energy, which is a different. Like they basically took about 73 million Nigerians, denied them service. So that was earlier this year. Uh, between December and March this year, they kicked 73 million Nigerians out of the phone networks, so you couldn't make any calls. Um, yeah, you couldn't make phone calls. You could receive if someone called you, but you couldn't make any phone calls until you
Hold on, and you said that's 73 million Nigerians.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, I think I can share the article. We did the story on that in the about. I know there are people who still have not registered. So they tried this in Kenya, right? But the case is still in court in Kenya. I think the Kenyans really keep against it. It's still in court. I think the court suspended it, but it's still something that the executive very much wants to. I don't know now. I mean, the new president has been sworn in. I don't know what he thinks about that, but he was still in government. Like he was the deputy president when all of this was happening. So it's not like I expect too much of the divergence from that policy. Uh, but the important thing is not really about like if this is what Africans wanted, fine, but it's not what Africans wanted or like you said voted for. This is more like policy recommendations from the big brains, outside of Africa, and our governments adopted it wholesale, more or less, very minor tweaks, no data protection or very poor data protection rules in place. And then we just brought all of those things. So that idea, if you marry that idea with what the example I used about the cocoa market and the value chain, and then you bring it into mobile technology, consumption, and the digital space, I think that's when you really be able to get like the sense of what I was on about in that piece, which is basically that look, um, having mobile phones is good for access, but we should not stick at we should not stop at just having access, right? um, because you have a key doesn't mean that you own the house. I mean, it just means that you can go inside the house. It doesn't even mean that you can access every part of the house. You just have the key to the front door. It literally just means you are stuck in the lobby or you're stuck in the living room area. What happens when you want to go to sleep? What happens when you need to make breakfast? What happens when you need to use the restroom? Um, all of those things, they are part of what make a home functional and what make a house a place where people live, right? And so you don't have all of that built into how we are thinking about technology right now. Right now, we're following a very Silicon Valley consumption model, um, which is a bad idea, right? It's like a network. It's a node. There are a lot of things you can build on it. There are a lot of things that were not possible before that are now possible. People can move money easier. People can communicate easier. People can access health care and health services and whatnot, and health advice and whatnot from the mobile phones, from the
Yeah.
smartphones. People can access people learn online and whatnot. So there is a lot of benefits, right? But again, all of that is, it's like putting the cat not even in front of the horse or something. It's like keeping the cat somewhere else and then trying to ride. I don't know the proper analogy to use. But yeah,
it's hard to come up for analogies when it comes to Africa.
Yeah, so it's like there's a bit of a disconnect.
Yeah.
We should absolutely do mobile technology because that is the best. Like everyone has a phone in their pocket, right? That's the best way to bring a lot of services closer to people. But at the same time, we should not just be stuck there. We should also be thinking about, I mean, if you have a dead phone in your pocket or you have a phone that cannot access cellular services, it's basically useless, you know. So what about that part, the back end? I don't know if that's the word.
Yeah.
The hardware side of the technology. There was a time when I think a story broke about how a lot of the phones people use in Africa are made in China, phones like Chinese suppliers. Like there's literally a Chinese company who hardly sells any of their brand products in China. They basically manufacture all their phones, ship them off to Africa. Most of those phones get sold in Africa. It's Transsion. So Transsion makes Itel, Infinix, Techno phones. Three different brands. Techno is more like the higher end. Infinix is more like mid-range. All of them are like low-cost phones, but Techno is more like the higher end. Infinix mid-range. Itel is like the absolutely cheap phone that you can get for $50 or less. Um, and so they have all of these devices that they ship to Africa. And then there was a story that broke, I think it was in Parts Africa, that they were shipping these devices with malware inside that allowed that they could track people, I think they could take payments from people without them knowing, and so on and so forth. It was a very damaging story, but really didn't change much. It
Yeah.
didn't make us start thinking about, okay, so how you make, it's not even necessary that you make the phones. It's just what's important is that you're actively thinking about it and you're formulating a digital strategy yourself that is amenable to your interests as opposed to just being sold stuff. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I really appreciated the article when I first stumbled upon it, and I started looking at the headlines, at least for your other articles, and I was glad to see somebody who took the time to like look at those intricacies, because it's something that I've always been wondering. Because I have a few questions that I ask myself. What's the last great idea that came out of Africa? Uh, where are the infrastructures that we're building for the technology that we see, and what type of technology are we uniquely positioned to create? Because if we have to create something that's like innovative, it has to be something that we are uniquely positioned to bring, whether it's out of technology, culture, or whatever. It has to have our touch to it, because the current technological landscape that we have has an American touch to it, right? The landscape of a cuisine, for example, a high food in the world has a French touch to it. So I'm always looking at these things, and when I'm looking at the development of technology in Africa, it's everybody's trying to make us to have us spend our money on phones. We are not. I mean, it sounds good marketing wise to say that we're the first mobile first continent, but can you really build some of these high level software, or even like just model infrastructure? Can you do that from a cell phone, right? So that's an entire set of software that is applied in different settings that is completely strange to us, because the interface that we have does not even support it to start with. So even software wise, we're still behind, even if we had the best mobile software. So that's, I mean, I was particularly confused around those questions. So when I found your article, it was eye-opening to see somebody kind of structure it that way and see the other crazy things that are going on, and nobody's pointing, because it's weird. But as far as like the two, I mean, it's not just two possible futures, but like the two that jump to mind is one where yes, we get the latest and greatest, but only what we're allowed to have, and one where we get to build part of the latest and greatest, at least. And the current path on which we're on, where everything we call advanced is basically a copy, and a bad copy at that. Because some of this technology is backed up by the philosophy, for example, of free speech, or like freedom of like all different type of ethical philosophies. And some of those ethics are not applied the same way in whether it's Nigeria, Togo, Gabon, or anywhere else. So the technology has to be, to a certain extent, in alignment with the culture and the ethics. And if you're just doing copy and paste, don't be surprised if the outcome is not exactly what you expect. Now you're surprised that, I mean, it's one of the things I see, like some of the old heads get outraged at some of the things that they see the teenagers do on the phones. Well, you just brought the technology in. You didn't ask what it was capable of. And when you had the opportunity to invest your resources in a way that will benefit your culture and your legacy, you said that was too much. And when your kids wanted to do it for you, you said, no, I want to buy a Mercedes and go to vacation in Dubai. But hey, I mean, just to say that I'm glad somebody else kind of like, I mean, somebody got a better view of the problem and is able to articulate it for the rest of us, to be honest.
I definitely will be doing a lot more of these types of articles. And yeah, like I think that there's a lot more around this that we need to absolutely talk more about. And yeah, I mean, I look forward to to having this conversation.
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely there's definitely more of your articles that I wish we could go through. I wish the quality of the call was better and we had more time, but I really wanted to go over this real quick so that at least we can set up another appointment maybe for Friday, and hopefully the conditions are better and we can have a longer conversation.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely I do I'm one of those people who read the articles from Tech Cabal. Like you guys seem to be the, right now you're in my top 5 of people who keep up the best with local news when it comes to technology. So I do appreciate that. Tell the rest of the team that I'm part of the people who appreciate them.
Oh yeah, I definitely will.
Yeah, will. But I mean, before I let you go, I know our time is running low probably, but quickly introduce yourself to the people who will be watching this. I'll figure out the edit later.
Oh, correct. Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, I'm Abraham Augustine. That is my name. So yeah, I work as a technology reporter. I cover venture capital technology in Africa, like especially focused on the bits of technology that have to do with digitizing X. And X is anything from commerce, logistics, payments, agribusinesses, and whatnot. Those are really the areas where I love to pay a lot of attention in, and trade. Because I believe like one of the biggest things that holds Africa back is our inter-trade relationships. They're very poor. It's not really something that it's a tech problem. It's a political problem. And also to a minor extent, it's an ethnic problem, which is something that technology, no matter what type of tech it is, cannot solve. So these are the areas where I'm interested in. I currently do that for Tech Cabal. I don't know if I mentioned that. I occasionally also contribute to Ink Africa. Ink Africa is the Africa version of Ink Magazine, um, the African online version of Ink Magazine. Yeah, that's it. I do a bunch of other stuff, but I don't think that's relevant for this conversation as well.
Nice. I finally found my African technology plug. Yeah, no,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
but
nice.
definitely, I would like to have a few, many more conversations with you about technology. I feel like there's a divide between how we follow the tech news in the English and French side, and I also want to, if it's possible, build that bridge and see what the conversations are about, what the different progress is about, because I have a few of my friends who have small platforms, small media companies as well, and I mean, more of us, we all see the problem from different angles, and the languages also allow us to get access to different information. So if
A few moments later.
yeah, so I was saying that one of my hopes is to, through these conversations and hopefully more, like kind of, bring us who are actual practitioners or active actors, active players, I should say, both on the French side and on the English side, see where our philosophies align and where they diverge, and see if there's opportunities to build something. Because yes, the languages do separate us, but we have deep cultural ties, and there's a value there that we can, with our little understanding, we can develop to get somewhere, or at least if we cannot, we can prove that it is impossible, so
Yeah, very.
it's my hope, that I get to meet people like you and more, and get to talk about these micro issues. Yes, there's the big, oh, they're not helping us, and like all the bullshit that we know about, but there's also what we're capable to do for ourselves. And one thing that's most important is at least that we have the right information. And the issues may be happening in French Africa, it may be happening in English speaking Africa, but us having that bridge to communicate may help us make better informed decisions. So that's what I hope, like, this first contact can hopefully build into. And I mean, this is a little rushed, but I really hope, like, we can really have time, 2-3 hours at a time, to really dig deep into these issues and really try to see what are the inputs and the outputs, and what really makes up the machine, and where things can be changed, because I truly do believe, that's just my personal philosophy, there are things about the systems that we cannot change, but we still have a little bit of sovereignty over our own decisions, and well-organized men can do a lot.
Very, very, very much so. Very much so. So yeah, look, I hear you about having more conversations, and I'm glad that you're open to also talking to more people. I do have a few people who are either like resident in, I think, Cote d'Ivoire,
Okay.
and who have had experience, yeah, in French-speaking West Africa, like significant experience running tech companies there. I think one of them is currently also operating in one of the tech companies. And yeah, like I can like try to connect you guys and we can have conversations. And you mean whether it's a conversation for the podcast or a conversation or not necessarily on the podcast, right? I really do
Yeah.
not care about how the conversation is distributed. It could literally be a WhatsApp call for
Oh yeah.
for
Oh
all I
yeah.
know, right? But
Oh yeah.
the idea is that that communication, that exchange of information flowing around and so on and so forth. Right? It's literally how I got my start talking about technology, just basically putting my thoughts out there,
Yeah.
watching very closely, talking to people, and then like compiling everything, thinking through it all, and putting it out there. Maybe if more people begin to do that, who knows? I don't know where we'll end up. Hopefully somewhere good.
Oh, hopefully, yes, indeed. And you know, for me, I truly believe this is one of the better ways of learning. Just just these conversations. Some of the best things that I've learned in life were through conversations. My granddad told me these women are beautiful, and I believed him. Yeah, but yeah. So I hope we definitely do get to, because I know so many tech entrepreneurs who lived here in the States, in Europe, who've been meaning to go home, or at least start their businesses home. Some have got their hearts broken due to lack of information, our old friend corruption, or just bad timing. But I think with what we were talking about earlier, communicating more, I think we could shed a better light and come up, who knows, come up with better strategies.
Very much so. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, I have to let you get back.
I'll have to jump off now.
Your busy
I'm
day.
sorry, but I mean, what can we do?
Hey, yeah.
Thank you, Kofi, for the conversation.
Oh no, you're welcome. I appreciate you for taking the time and dealing with all the technical issues. Hopefully,
hopefully,
yeah.
Hopefully, I think hopefully we'll have like, I don't know, an African solution to.
Yeah. For sure.
Who knows?
I saw you already signed up for the Friday meeting, so I'll be looking forward to that.
Okay. I hope we can have some more time then.
Yes, sir. You have a wonderful rest of your day.